Good morning, everybody. Uh, Welcome to the Avondale IT webinar on IT and productivity. My name's Kevin Uphill, and I hope you're all well. So just to set the scene, I'm going to be chairing today's session, but also doing some talking. For those of you who know me, I'm the Chairman of Avondale Corporate, but we have two practices. We have a practice that does management consultancy and business advisory, and then we also have the mergers and acquisition practice. Today, IT and productivity. Why are we talking about that? Well, obviously, it's a difficult time at the moment with the COVID-19 pandemic, and we felt that the best thing we could do to contribute was talk about how you could increase margin in your business and find smarter ways to work. Increasingly within our management consultancy practice, we are focusing on technology solutions as it's a very effective way of building margin and value within companies. I'm going to be joined today by Peter Drinkwater, who is our head of strategy, but also comes from a technology background. In the past, 3 or 4 years ago, we actually sold his IT company. You know, he knows a thing or two about the IT sector. So we'll be welcoming Peter in a minute. As far as the event is concerned, we're going to be about 50 minutes. I shall be on video when I speak. Peter in France has got some issues with the internet, so he's going to be just in on the phone, but that's fine. We also have a Q&A panel, so if you've got any questions as we go, please fire away. And hopefully we'll also have an opportunity for some questions later on. So just to kick off, yeah, this is a massive subject, particularly information technology. Every business is a digital business, and it's a very difficult one. Where do you start? So, you know, we are going to be able to cover snippets today and hopefully give you a few ideas. But look, the offer's there. Have a conversation afterwards if you've got any specific questions to your business. We don't bite and we won't charge. In terms of productivity, the reason that we put that forward is in our research and our management consultancy, we've seen that the UK does lag behind other Western economies in terms of productivity. And for example, if you go to Germany, it takes them 4 days to produce what we produce in the UK in 5. Now, a lot of people believe that's because of the City of London and that not really being in the UK economy, but actually a global provider. And I think that certainly has some impact. But actually also, when we go out and we see a lot of emerging mid-market companies, we think there is an issue, and that is that people are struggling to embrace all the new technology, and they're not doing enough time and research in how to effectively use it. So again, today, that's one of our key agendas. What can you do, either as an advisor or within the sector as an emerging mid-market company, to invest in your business in technology? And the attack here is COVID-19, very bad impact on the economy. Can we push back by increasing productivities in our business? And do we do that through digitalization? And hopefully we can give you some real ideas to do that. So moving to the webinar. So Peter's going to be talking, I will be hosting, and as far as my first section is concerned, I just really want to give you a big picture and a backdrop to digital transformation. First of all, we see a lot of small companies where the owner managers are actually in charge of the IT sector, and that's an issue. We think that one of the challenges in smaller companies is the lack of expertise in how you enable technology. Now, obviously, that's different for every business, and every business is in a different area, so it's a fairly sweeping statement. But ultimately, hopefully, the inspiration is 7 out of the 10 top most valuable companies are technology companies, and if we can get our IT working more effectively, hopefully we can push ourselves up the value chain. And what's driving this technology revolution? Well, we think there's 4 main elements going on. The first one, we call it the Netflix or Amazon impact. increasingly tech companies are getting to a position where they can join their data up, so they are making decisions through empirical evidence and the big data picture, which means better decisions and more accurate decisions. And the opportunity for emerging mid-markets is, how can we get to a position where we can also share some of those concepts and benefits? I mean, a really good example I came across, Tesco's pre-COVID obviously had managed to join up the weather system to their ERP system, so they could put their stock control in better for barbecues, which hopefully we'll all be having soon at some point. But effectively joining the system up to the data to make better decisions. But the biggest one we see for companies that we go out and meet is the cloud revolution. So the cloud revolution is, we're all aware that not everybody needs a server anymore in their back office. Increasingly, it's through connectivity and cloud apps that we're running our companies, and particularly within the enterprise process management system, ERP systems. But one of the challenges we see is most people struggle to join those up, and I'll touch on that later. But the revolution is, there's more and more apps that can help your business, and bringing enterprise level solutions down to emerging mid-market. So that gives us a real opportunity to attack in terms of increasing productivity if we get the design right around the IT platform. Of course, the other big trend in driving digital transformation, mobile, artificial intelligence, and people basically being 24/7 connected. So increasingly customers are expecting to be in real-time engagement with your business, and have a real-time dialogue. And that's also driving the need towards digitalization. But ultimately, businesses today, it's not just about capital. Knowledge is also a key driver. And if you can get the information technology joined up, so you get more information and more knowledge, then you get more ideas, and in itself, that drives the business. But the challenge we're mainly seeing, and our strategy team, we're very lucky, we get to go and see 30, 40 companies a year. We see what works, what doesn't work. So none of this is rocket science, but hopefully gives you a feel for some of the challenges we see. The single biggest issue we see is that most SMEs and emerging mid-market companies treat IT as a cost, not an investment. And that's a real issue. I was talking the other day to a digital automation specialist in the city, and they were saying even the banks, they would prefer to put more consultants in than invest in software. And I think we really need to challenge that. It is a reaction, oh, we're struggling for time, we're struggling for capacity, we'll put more people in. And the question is actually, no, what can you do from a technology point of view? But if the finance department are in charge of the IT department, you're not going to be able to adopt change. So seeing IT as an investment, not a cost, is a critical mind shift in order to transform your business around this area. We've mentioned earlier, the other thing we see is that many owner managers are in charge of the technology side of it, or their office managers or finance team are, and they don't have the luxury of a chief technical officer. We also deal with PLCs and corporates. They're able to pay 150,000 in the very high end, 300,000 for top talent to help them join the systems up and join the docs up. And how do we in the mid-market and the smaller sectors find that expertise? One of the challenges we see is that a lot of entrepreneurs or owner managers are expecting it to come out of their managed service providers. But managed service providers, and we sell those, very good companies, and increasingly adding services, but they start with a break-fix mentality. They start with, we're here to support, and rarely do they stop and design the IT infrastructure. And in particular, if we go back full circle to the cloud connectivity, they're not looking at how you can join the dots up around the cloud apps and the cloud technology. And that actually, means APIs, dedicated application interfaces to join the dots up, which is an issue because, obviously that takes time, it's bespoke programming, and not every business has the expertise to even commission it, let alone know where to start in terms of who to go to do that. We actually think the IT sector itself is holding back productivity. A lot of that is because technical solutions are very complex. They're sold around jargon, and we think that's an issue. Again, I was in a meeting the other day, and somebody who started going on about the CX experience, and we do this stuff for a living, and I was going, CX. Oh yes, customer experience. Jargon is thrown around. It confuses people, and actually, some of that fear means that directors avoid it if they can. And what I would like to remind you of is a line from Bill Gates a long time ago now, which was, "Be nice to geeks, one day they'll rule the world." Well, what we're trying to do today is suggest that we all need to learn to become a bit more geeky, and hopefully with the virtualization that we're seeing in the world, which we don't see going away, I think people have really understood that there is a massive opportunity around virtualization and digital transformation, and maybe this is a case of where we really need to look at our leadership structures in order to find the time to invest in it. Another area that we see people struggling in is culture. So people understand the need to invest in IT, joining systems up, but they engage in it, but they then struggle to get it to stick, and that's simply because people undermine the system. Again, we came across a product the other day that works in PLCs, but one of our clients had developed an Excel system that actually goes in to enterprise organizations and sweeps their systems to find how many Excel sheets you've got, who's using them, how often they're used, how many tabs they've got. And that's a cracking product because that shows you where the manual interventions are occurring. And then, of course, it gives you a sort of start to a digital roadmap of, well, how do we get that information central to the system and open it up to others? But culture is, systems are put in place, people don't understand them, not enough training is put in place, and people therefore fail to embed and use all the facilities. But obviously, that's some of the challenges we see. I mean, the real opportunity here is if you can invest in the technology, get it more join the dots up, we can get more done quickly at less cost, and ideally with less people, or give us the opportunity to redeploy people. And we're hoping that that's an opportunity to fight back against the overall backdrop that we're seeing of slow economic growth, or this year, a fairly dramatic decline as a result of the pandemic. Ideally, and some of the large tech companies are achieving this, if you get it right, you can create a closed loop. And a closed loop is the technology is so joined up, it's created knowledge, and that knowledge enables you to develop products and services around that, which then gives you further competitive advantage. We're also of a view that if you get the technology piece right, contrary to a view that it's about replacing people, we actually think it's about retaining people. Technology is a real key to gaining advantage. It's no longer a unique selling point, it is a hygiene point. And millennials in particular expect good IT systems and joined up systems. And we think you will get stronger employee engagement and retention if you invest in this area, as well as customers looking at better retention. So, I mean, this is my talk is a big picture. Peter's going to give you hopefully some real specifics. As we said, this is a massive topic. We could cover alone a seminar on cyber and risk. So we're really trying to give some snippets today. But really, in terms of the big picture, some tips and rules. So if you're convinced that technology is an area that you want to invest in, and you feel that you can drive productivity around that, the first sort of top tip for our entrepreneur owners is, technology is something you can't delegate. You have to take ownership. It comes from the top. And therefore, putting more time and research into understanding the opportunity is absolutely critical. Change is driven from the top. But we do want to remind people, technology remains an enabler. So fundamentally, it needs to join up with what's the business plan. And that still sits around key questions like, what does your customer want today? What are they likely to want in the future? And also not what your business looks like today, but also where you envision the business model being in the future. And I mean, that's also critical. You know, our own personal experience of that on the M&A side, for example, 3-4 years ago, we increasingly started doing more global transactions. We put in place a lot of work around virtualization, whether video calls, conference calling, and also virtual data rooms. We're increasingly getting bids on companies in the digital arena. I was talking to a competitor acting from an acquisition point of view at the moment, and trying to buy a company, and he said, oh, everything's on hold. And we were sitting there going, well, our experience is just not that. We're still having lots of dialogue because we've got the data rooms and effectively creating virtual viewing. So the point is, see where your business model's going. We saw ourselves moving more global, so we virtualized early, and it's paid dividends in terms of the pandemic. So it's really critical to try and take a look at not where you are, not what the teething issues are today, but where you envision you're likely to be before you engage in this process. And in terms of process, I mean, Peter's going to give you some specific tips, but we you know, one of the questions we get with this when we're meeting people around it is, well, where do I start? You know, it's complex. You know, we've got a lot of systems, and it's hard to navigate through. And actually, for us, we start with the business process. Yes, every business is an IT business. Every business is a digital business. Lots of systems, lots of software apps. But start with the process. And we see it as a sort of cross-fertilization. You do an IT review, an IT audit, and by the way, we can help with that. Peter's got a very good cost-effective IT audit product, but we run that in conjunction with a business process review. And effectively, that's looking at all the different stages, roles and responsibilities. And one of the things we often find actually in many emerging mid-market companies, roles and responsibilities is loose. There's a lot of overlap and often not written down. And it's very difficult to do an IT transformation unless you get those areas correct in the first instance. So once you've got your process, you can then map down the IT systems, and then you look at how you can interlayer them from a redesign point of view. And the good news is, yeah, whilst this is going to take some money, IT does cost money, often there are also cost savings on the way, both in terms of looking at redeployment in terms of people, but also in terms of more cost-effective solutions on the IT front. But you start there with an IT audit. What have you got? What apps you've got? How well are they joined up? Where are the tension points? And then looking at the process and then joining them together to get one overall roadmap for how you engage in digital transformation. So I'm going to be back later to chair some questions. Hopefully, I don't think we had any questions in so far, but please do fire in as we're going. Peter's now going to give you some more specific insight into what he's seeing happening from a software and technology point of view. Peter, over to you.
Thank you, Kevin. Good morning, everybody. So in the last 2 months, I've been extremely lucky at working with Avondale on a number of IT business review projects, and there are 2 overarching things that companies are looking to do right at this moment. This is within the last 8 weeks. And the first one, which seems a little bit throwaway, okay, is embrace change. And for the progressive companies who are trying to think and work their way out of this situation, they've already come to terms with things have changed. They're probably not going to go back to the way they were. The semi-dreamware, okay, back in middle of March, that everybody will be sitting back at their desk sometime in the middle of this year, has dissipated, and that embracing change and the need for change is critically important. The second thing that I'm seeing as well is analogous to the war in 1939-1940, which was called the phony war. Somewhat, this is a phony economy at the moment, being supported by furloughed employees. Rishi Sunak on Tuesday this week extended the scheme to October 2020. That's another 5.5 months, okay, with admittedly an increased contribution from employers. But in this period, the companies I'm working with today who have embraced the change and are looking to make changes within their business want and need to do that within that 5.5 month period, because they realize that the phony economy that we're sitting in at the moment is going to go away. Also, interestingly, we've seen some other things in the news, which I spoke about back in the beginning of March. At the end of April, Jez Staley, the CEO of Barclays, said big expensive offices, okay, may be a thing of the past, okay. And I wrote an article back in March saying maybe we've seen the beginning of the end of some offices for some companies, okay. And I think that the people that I'm working with at the moment, whilst they haven't quite embraced that much change, it is within their mindset. We need to look for what was a term that originally appeared in the early 1990s, which is islands of information. And islands of information appeared as a concept in the early 90s in technology because there were all these disparate IBM, DEC, other systems sitting out there, not joined together. Over the last 20 years, we've gone to a position where those islands have been removed. Now we are going to a position where they've been semi-separated again, both by what Kevin mentioned earlier, okay, in respect to software as a service technologies, but also now because many of the employees within organizations are physically distributed from each other, and those islands are being artificially recreated because of the way in which British companies use manual processing currently rather than using the technology. Kevin also mentioned information technology is the enabler and not the cost. I won't go over that too much, but I've seen so many companies look at licensing from software suppliers with different license schedules and say, well, you know, how much can I save? Rather than saying, how much more technology do I get for the higher price? Is that beneficial to me? Will I use it? How will I use it? And will that increase my productivity? Kevin also talked about IT management support, and I've been working on a project with a customer in the last 2 or 3 weeks where they're working with or trying to identify with me a new supplier for their IT services, just for the reasons we're talking about today. And IT suppliers just don't get it, okay? You know, I could spoon feed these people the idea that the customer needs strategy, and strategy is not about how many disks you put in a server, okay? But it's about what software underpins productivity that underpins your business. And a whole plethora of IT support companies and also IT managers within the SME and the emerging mid-market just plain don't get, okay, the connection between the baseline technology and the business. And finally, I'm really quite passionate, and I know people use the word passionate a lot, but I'm quite passionate about staff training, because a lot of companies will throw new technology at employees and assume that the employee will read the email, look at the YouTube video, go to the manufacturer's website, speak to somebody else, you know, whatever, okay, to get best advantage out of the technology for the employer. And in general, it's just not the case. What you find within employer environments is that, employee environments, is that you've got some leaders out there that get the new tech very quickly and make great use of it. You don't have to worry about those people. It's the other 90%, okay, that stay quiet, lurk around in the background, okay, and don't actually, you know, get and understand the advantages of the technology for the company. Next slide, please, Kevin. Next slide. Thank you. Right. Okay. So this slide is I've titled this mitigation risk. Okay. You could also call this covering your back, or making sure what you've already got is kept safe. Yeah. So bad IT security, bad backup and disaster recovery, bad compliance. None of them post-COVID issues. Okay. All of them post-COVID and pre. Okay. Any of those go seriously wrong, okay, you'll be stuck, okay, spending time, resources, losing productivity, and costs, okay, if any one of these goes seriously wrong. I'm going to give you an example. A project that Kevin and myself have been working on over the last 6 weeks is a medical clinic in the UK. I can't say where, but a medical clinic in the UK. Had a breach of data security in 2019 and lost medical records. The attack was malware via email. Email was opened by a receptionist. The ICO, Information Commission Office in the UK, imposed upon that company an £80,000 fine, right, on a business with a turnover of £2 million. So a 4% fine, maximum allowable underneath the ICO rules. Insurance paid 50%. Business owner had to pay 50% as well. So these are real cases. They're not just scaremongering. People do get fined, okay, by compliance authorities. Security, security is a real issue at the moment, and there are some specific seminars that we'll run on security. But just to give you a flavour here. The NSA in the USA, the National Cybersecurity Centre associated with GCHQ in the UK, have all registered a significant increase in attack levels at the moment. In this economic downturn, cybercrime is a real make for some of these people, and also the theft of IT assets. And there are no boundaries, okay? Hospitals, medical centers, even the World Health Organization have been attacked in the last few weeks. There was also the case, I think it was last week or the week before, where a COVID-19 map showing the infection rates of the virus in a certain area was embedded with malware. And whoever opened up the map run an executable, and their machine was infected with ransomware. So security is core at the moment. Everybody should look to defend what you've already got. Backup and disaster recovery. I think everybody knows if you don't back your data up and you don't have your system backed up, then you know UK insurance industry says 80% of companies that don't do that will be out of business in 2 months, okay? So it's core and key to a business, okay, that you protect your long-term assets by backing up your data. And that may be including the ability to recover to a local or a cloud-based disk as quickly as possible so that you can keep your business up and running. But again, this is all about protecting what you already have. This is not a post issue. This is a pre-issue as well. And compliance. There are many compliance standards that different companies have to comply to. But I focused on one just around information security management, ISO 27001. And I wrote the ISO 27001 standard for a large marketing company in the UK based in central London. And that standard that was written and ran to many, many pages, okay, was written around people sitting in an office, predominantly in central London. Well, that office today is almost completely empty. The ISO 27001 rule book that was written now is irrelevant in some respects, and that company doesn't see its hundreds and hundreds of employees going back, okay, until much later in the year. So at the moment, I think we all feel, and I wrote about this in March. I think everybody feels, well, you know, ISO 27001 and those standards. I'm interested in survival at the moment, okay, and a lot of companies clearly are, and rightfully so. But at some stage, these things will come back, okay, and the rules around FCA and ICO just plain will not go away. And at the moment, they may be, you know, focused on other things, but at some stage later this year, we'll come back to the point where those organizations will look to the compliance within the new frameworks that have been constructed within the last 2 months. Next slide, please.
Peter?
Yes?
Before we move to the next slide, we've actually had a couple of questions.
Okay.
I've got one attendee who's done a hand show. Can I ask, because we'd like to get the questions shared by everyone, can I ask that if you have got a question, please use the Q&A panel rather than a hand up. That helps us get it into the equation for everybody. Peter, just earlier, the main question we've had so far,
yes.
What do you mean that IT management and support are not strategic? Can you just explain that one for us all?
Yeah, so as you know, Kevin, one of the projects we're working on, okay, you know, has this clinic. I'm trying to make sure I don't give the names away, okay, you know, but the clinic we're working with, okay, has a specific practice management system, and that practice management system is based around a UK software manufacturer. The UK software manufacturer is unresponsive to questions. Their technology is built on technology that was started in the early 1990s. So it's a Microsoft DOS-based system, which has gradually changed over a period of time. And the suppliers, okay, that are bidding for supporting this particular customer, you know, they've been spoon-fed information, okay, from Kevin and myself about how this customer's business revolves around, okay, this piece of software and not around the servers and disks that the software sits on, okay. It's the software itself that is the business. It is the database in the software that's the business. And the questions have arisen, okay, rightfully so, and we wrote a strategy document for this customer. Should we retain that software on premise at the customer's site, or should we put it into the cloud, okay? And whilst Kevin and myself have written strategy suggestions and comparisons between those 2 key points, and given that to various managed service providers to bid against, they just don't get it, okay? And the only thing they do get is that if they put it in the cloud, they don't get as much revenue for supporting the server. Kevin mentioned it, some of it is self-centered, okay? These people who manage IT networks for small, medium businesses, they're more interested in retaining unnecessary complexity at the lower peripheral level, okay, which is not required. But when it comes to looking at complexity within productivity and artificial intelligence and data flows, these people melt away.
Yeah, and part of that also, Peter, is I think a lot of IT service providers, they don't ask what's the business plan, what's the business model. They come in and do the IT audit on the setup. Again, with that break fix mentality, but there's a limited mindset around what's your business plan, how are you going to grow it, where do you see it going, and who your end customer is. So they, without understanding that, it's very difficult for them to offer advice on the next level of, IT design, if you like, beyond the server or cloud connectivity. Okay, that's great. Good answer, Peter. Well, I'm going to move you back to your next slide. But one other point for everybody: these slides are going to be available. So if you are interested and think that some of the stuff we're talking about is useful nudges, do ask. We'll send the slides over to those who want. Okay, so Peter, back to you.
Okay, so in trying to cover a very, very big subject, okay, I've selected one product from one manufacturer, that manufacturer being Microsoft. Many companies have Microsoft technology, so it's reasonable to use as a comparison. There are many other software as a service organizations out there and other bespoke manufacturers. So I've only selected this as an example, and it presents a good example as well, because Microsoft have acquired individual technologies, islands of technologies, and brought these together. I focus on Microsoft 365, and many people will know that as Office 365, but Microsoft decided to change their naming structure in the last couple of months. So for Microsoft 365, read Office 365. And I'm not really going to focus on the core functionality, but it's the stuff that, does your email, runs your Word, Excel, PowerPoint. You might know OneDrive, you might know SharePoint, okay? But I have in this presentation no interest in those streams of the product. I will highlight though that that if you take Microsoft Office 365, you do get a superb, superbly featured suite of security products, which is really good for the SME and for the emerging mid-market businesses. Because these products, whilst they might not be absolutely the best in class, when you look at the Gartner and Forrester reports quarterly on Magic Quadrant, Microsoft is always in the top, right-hand quadrant. So it's right up there, but there may well be one or two better products. But Microsoft's ethos is we bring it all together, integrated as a great package at a great price, okay? And we're one of the leaders. So the thing I want to focus on very quickly in the next couple of minutes, okay, is the functionality that is in many of the business Office 365, Microsoft 365 products that nobody talks about. Because a lot of the IT management and support companies just plain don't understand them, okay? And I've highlighted down here total 7. I'm not going to talk about 7 because it'll bore everybody stupid. But I put them down, and if anybody wants information on them afterwards, I provide. So I just want to look at bookings, Staff Hub, Yammer, and Flow, okay? And I'm going to just go through them real quick, okay, to tell you somewhat about what they do. And I'm doing them in reverse order, because the most important one is Flow. So bookings, okay. I really love bookings, okay. So what's it looking to try and solve? You know the situation where you've got 5 people in an office, distributed around the place, some people as well, and you're all trying to make an appointment, to get together for a meeting. So somebody kicks it off and says, oh, can you make this meeting? I don't know. I'll have a look at my diary, blah, blah, blah. It goes backwards and forwards, and then somebody says, well, I can't make that day. Oh, blah, blah, blah. And before you know, you've got a storm of emails, okay, and people sending backwards and forwards that I'm not available then I've got to go out, okay. Bookings solves that problem, or looks to solve that problem. It allows co-workers and or your customers to query your calendar without seeing the contents of your calendar, but to query the free spaces within your calendar. And if bookings is set up, it will allow the customer or co-worker to automatically book time within your schedule, and that can be across a number of people. So you could have 3 or 4 people. Bookings will then look to see when all 3 or 4 people are next available. If a meeting's booked for you through bookings, you can choose to remove it, decline it. Anything you normally do with a meeting, you can choose to do. Bookings is great, okay, but it's within the Microsoft family, so it works with Microsoft. Doesn't work with very well with Gmail, but there are other solutions out there from companies such as iCalendarly, which allow you to work across a whole host of different mail platforms. Great product, okay, really increases productivity, and it's already included in most people's licenses, and most people don't even use it. The next one I want to talk about, and that's Staff Hub. Okay, Staff Hub is a product which has been included now within Microsoft Teams. It's part of Office 365. You have to excuse me, I can't get hold of the new naming structure. It's a little bit too high end for my liking for the SME mid-market. It aims to run staff calendars or staff rotas in very big distributed staffing situations, pub chains, supermarkets, where you've got literally hundreds or thousands of employees who want to change shift patterns, etc. But there's an analogous product, okay, which I really like, and I actually used in a company that I owned. I commissioned it, okay, and that's a product from a UK software manufacturer called Who's Off. And again, you don't have to write that down, it's part of the follow-up. It's a central dashboard. It costs a little bit more money because it's outside of 365. You put in all your employees into it. You put in how much leave they're allowed, and it gives you and the employees a dashboard to show when they've taken compassionate leave, maternity leave, study leave, annual leave. It cuts out completely all of those backwards and forward emails, you know, saying Sue wants to take next Wednesday off, but Bob's part of the team, and I'm not sure that we should have them both off at the same time. Because within the product, it says there are rules, okay? Bob and Sue, you know, can't take the same day off because they're covering the phones, okay? So it cuts out masses of communications, increases productivity. Yes, it's a wee bit more money per employee per month, but the savings that I created in my previous company were absolutely incredible. So I'd really recommend that. Back to the core products, Yammer. One of the things that people will have noticed when everybody shoved off home, you know, towards the end of March and started this working from home, is that the creation of an office environment is a little bit tricky when everybody's sitting all over the country. Microsoft Yammer is a really interesting product, again included, you know, within the license, which allows you to, as an employer, not an employee, an employer, to start embracing the fact that your employees need to communicate with each other on things which are just not work. All right, if you want to get the most out of these people, you've got to understand that, you know, they're human beings and they want to talk about other things. Yammer is an enterprise standard collaboration tool. It allows employees to talk about, you know, what they're doing at work, football, COVID if they want to, if they haven't had enough of that on the BBC News channels, anything, okay? It's rich content, you can put videos in there, it's chat, so it creates back that community, okay, you know, of an organization that's being removed by the fact that we're all sitting in different places. So great product. Then the important one, okay? Flow, again, included within the license. This is the real deal, okay? It's embryonic, okay? Microsoft won't say that, okay? But it's an embryonic product, and really it's get it out there, see how it works, Microsoft learn off everybody else, okay, and improve. What does Flow do? It's a robotic automation process. It's quite complicated. It uses genuine AI technology, not machine learning, for those that know the difference. So it's a genuine AI engine. It looks at data flows between or communication, data and communication flows between employees. And it attempts to say, you know, I'm seeing patterns or flows here. I'll define what that flow is, and I'll try and create a process, all right, to replicate that flow without the employee having to be involved. So it's semi-automated. It is a process which is created in the background for you by Microsoft. My opinion is that it's a little bit clunky at the moment. Microsoft claim that you don't have to touch it, okay, to make it work. I'm not sure that that's true, but it's heading in the right direction, okay? And it's an interesting technology that will, at a very, very low price point, create genuine business benefit and productivity increases. Flow looks at processes, makes them into an automated process, and allows you, okay, as a company, to change and augment those processes, to add to them. And Kevin mentioned about closed loop feedback earlier on, and that's what Flow's about. Flow makes an attempt to give you an automated process, and then allows you to change that and model that process as part of the product. There's a report which came out recently from Forrester called the Total Economic Input Study, and it states that if you can use automated technologies such as Flow, then the ROI over a 3-year period is in excess of 300%. App development development costs reduced by 70%, and the average increase in productivity on Flow is anything up to 15%. Now, I'm going to leave by giving an example of another project that Kevin and myself were working on recently. An insurance company in the UK, I'm just reading the numbers, 23 people originally, now down to 18, 5 furloughed. We engaged with this company a few weeks ago. It's the 5 furloughed people that are the interesting one, because the business owner says, well, we're doing that work now by not using the furloughed people, because we can do that, and those are the interesting words. We can do that, by doing this paperwork and working with the people that we've already got. Therein lies productivity gain, something that can be modeled by Flow, all right? And really, did that insurance company ever really need those additional 5 people? It's back to Kevin's point. It was easier to employ more people and more paper to sort out systems than to sort out the systems themselves. And the very final thing, all right, on another project that I was working on this week, and actually was on the phone last night about it, we talked about Flow. And the managed service provider that I was talking to said, oh, you get all this other great technology, within Microsoft 365. And they said, well, you get Flow. I said, well, what's Flow? Blah, blah, blah. It's this. It's automated process management. I said, can you help us with that? And they said, no, we don't understand it. All right. They didn't say in those words, but within 10 minutes, that was the bottom line. They sell it, it's included, but they don't understand it. And in the middle there exists the transformation that a person or group or people that Kevin talked about between the business and the IT people, okay, the people that actually specify how your systems should work. that's it from me. Okay, next slide. Actually, there's one more slide, haven't I?
There is, Peter, but we've had a couple
But
more questions.
I'm conscious that I've overrun.
Yeah, you have overrun. We've had a couple more questions, actually, Peter. So before
Should we
we
go to
move,
questions? Should we go to questions,
we've
Kevin?
had a few more questions, Peter. Yeah, so
Okay.
let's try and do what we can with the questions for a moment, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah. I'm sorry for overrunning.
I've got no worries. I've got some summing up. So a question here: how do Avondale? And I think I understand this, but obviously I'm not as technical as you are with your sort of CTO background. But how do Avondale deliver cloud ERP excellence and adoption when there are many offerings in the market, and differentiate? And this is the bit I think I get, but between the false cloud and the pure cloud solutions.
Yeah. In terms of what do we do in terms of ERP? Well, we are not a technology company. We are a management consultancy company. So if we are approached, okay, for a particular project, say in medical or in accountancy, and we had a project within manufacturing where a company was already using, say, 50 online on premise. We will look, okay, at what the customer has, where they're trying to go and why, and then we will look at that, okay, against the various ERP solutions, whether they're in cloud or on premise, and there's no distinct reason why people should go to cloud today unless there's a damn good reason. Some of the projects we've worked on, it's been better for the customer to keep their application local, especially if they've got a lot of images and high-res images. You wouldn't want to try and run those applications across the internet even now. So the answer to your question is, it depends. We are not aligned to any particular ERP solution within any market space. We look at the requirements of the customer, we look at where they are now, we look at where they're going, and we look at the marketplace, across various suppliers.
That's good. Thank you, Peter. And we've got one more, which is on Teams. So you've got 10 seconds, Teams.
Okay. Everybody sees it on TV. It's like Zoom, different interface. Thing you should know, all right, that makes it really different, okay? You can upgrade your license, okay, to include Microsoft Voice as well. Then it becomes a total integrated phone system too. That differentiates it away from me.
Okay, that's very useful, Peter. Thank you for that. So really just it brings to me to sum up, but also if anybody's got any more questions, please start firing them in as we are now. But that was very useful, Peter. I think, obviously we can't cover everything. We picked sort of Microsoft as one main delivery area. Our own experience at the moment, we're doing an awful lot more work in developing our Salesforce environment. And it is quite interesting how the increased virtualization does actually show you opportunities to save time. We realized our virtual data room release and IM information memorandum release is a two-stage process, and with a little bit of investment we can move it to one stage. Less time means we've got more time to have conversations with our clients. So I mean, ultimately that's the example of productivity. I think, Peter, it was great when you majored on Microsoft. Microsoft have a saying which is where we work is how we make a difference, not where we go to work. And I think really within the COVID and the virtualization conversation that's going on, we don't see the world of work going back to where it was. We do see this being a massive opportunity and accelerator to drive a more virtual ability and way of working. McKinsey's themselves, when they did a survey on UK productivity, they actually discussed that one of the reasons that they think it is low isn't that we are struggling from a competitive point of view. It's simply that we're not adopting fast enough global best practice. And they actually have quite a few examples of that. So what I'm hoping to make the point of here is that there is a real opportunity here to redesign our businesses around technology. We wrote a paper, and again, we've got quite a lot of content now. Every week we're producing a document, Lead Ahead, which is a thought piece, hopefully try and give you some ideas and inspire you. And there's a thought piece up there on why we see IT as the hub, not the spoke. What we mean by that is an awful lot of businesses have layer caked their IT systems on top of the business model. And what we're articulating here is there is an opportunity to take the concept of digitalization, sit that in the center, and then and imagine what your business model looks like mapped around that as an area. And so one of the clients we worked on, they hadn't got a proper ERP system. They were using Sage Line 50. They were a wholesale business, an awful lot of paper orders, no ability for customers to, they were still receiving faxes and telephone calls for orders, no ability for online orders. And actually joining that up basically meant that we were able to redeploy 3 people. So, you know, it takes a bit of time. There is some investment, but you know, real opportunity to increase efficiency around this. And then, of course, there's the whole area which, you know, is difficult. Guys, we struggle with it. So, but I think it's really interesting. You then bring in MarTech, so marketing technology. You know, how do you then automate some of the data you've got? So you're getting information on what customers are interested in. You know, which of your customers are looking at what, for example, on your website. You can see that. You then follow them up with the sales call. So, you know, again, there's opportunities for growth here. It's not all about efficiency. There's opportunities to drive growth. So we start with the point, which is imagine. You know, don't stop looking at where you are. Let's just start with a fresh sheet of paper and imagine what the possibilities are. We then do the IT audit. What have you got? Peter's got a very cost-effective business review and IT audit products. If anybody's interested in that, please email us and we'll tell you what we do and how we go about doing that. We back that with the business process review and roles and responsibilities, and then we start moving into design. Obviously, within that context, there's all the change management. You know, what steps do you take? We do recommend bite-sized steps. Very easy to get an entire design, but actually moving it to more bite-sized steps is critical. You can't tackle this all at once. So just some final questions. Peter, if you can just hang on, and then we're going to sign off in 4 minutes, just to keep the pace going. So Peter, I'm going to throw another question. Flow sounds good, but tricky.
Yeah, I think so. You know, if you read Microsoft's releases on Flow, they would like to say it's really easy and the world's a wonderful place. Okay. I think it's probably an interesting technology. It's a way we've got to go, but I think that the design around Flow needs to be thought through by business people and not by technology people.
Brilliant. Okay. One other question that's come in, which I will answer, and then we will sign off and say thank you for listening. The other question is the recording being shared? And the answer is yes, we will be recording the session. We'll be sharing. Anyone that wants a copy, please shout, although we will put it on our website. It'll also be going on our partners at the Institute of Directors website, hopefully in the next week or two. So yes, the recording will be shared. We have other webinars coming up. We've got a really exciting one on employee ownership in the next week or two. We can't forget, of course, as well, that we're a mergers and acquisition practice. So this week our Lead Ahead series was on M&A. and the elephant in the room on M&A. So anyone who's interested still in looking at deals, that's a fun piece, but why we don't see M&A going away despite the recession that we're facing. But really appreciate you all turning up, and thank you very much for listening. As I say, everything will be available on the website, and just stay well, everybody. Thank you.